So, your Oshi is graduating. What now? Hello, and welcome back to the Communications from Pluto podcast. I'm your host, Nyx Nebula, and before we get started on the podcast, I just want to say thank you guys so much for the support and the love on the last podcast. It was so lovely to see. So just wanted to put that in here real quick, but let's get into the video now. So it's obviously very sad when your favorite VTuber Oshi might be graduating, especially when it's your Kami Oshi. But is it better for them? A lot of the VTubers who graduate either debut as indie right away and seem to really enjoy being able to do their own thing, or they take a long break, and that break is often a lot longer than they could take while being involved in a corporation. So being involved in a VTuber corporation, no matter how big or small, is obviously a huge responsibility. Sometimes a lot of travel is involved. And even outside of streaming or performances, a lot goes on behind the scenes that these VTubers have to participate in. I mean, vocal practice, recordings, dance practice, collabs with other VTubers, sponsorships, etc. The list goes on. But the workaholic lifestyle and or the large focus on achieving work-based goals isn't for everyone, and that's just the truth, honestly. I know you can look at, VTubers that work really hard, and that's just how some people function, You think of Mori Calliope or Takanashi Kiara, and you think wow, that's, when you really step back and look at it, wow, that's gotta be crazy. That's gotta be so intense and just hard on you, not only mentally, but just physically as well. It can have a huge impact on a lot of aspects of your life, a lot of relationships in your life even as well. And so it's just simply not something that everyone can do. And another thing is as well, things can change. I mean, people change, goals can shift. Maybe you had a goal before and you think you wanted one thing, but then something happens, whether that be something in your life, something changes. It can be big or small, but you might just not have the same ambitions or goals that truly align with what the company is looking for. External life stressors or obligations can also be big things that kind of contribute to why a VTuber might leave an agency. I mean, there's so many things that go on in life, it could be an illness, something happening to a family member, taking care of pets or children or anything like that. It's just life. Sometimes there's a lot going on, and being in an agency is, as I said, a lot of hard work. And typically in a lot of agencies, you need to kind of be a workaholic. But not every life I suppose lifestyle is built for that. People, not everyone focuses on work. If that's their main goal in life and that's what makes them happy, then 100% go for it. I'm not judging anyone for being a quote unquote workaholic, but again, some people just don't function that way. Another thing is as well that it's interesting because VTubing hasn't quite been around long enough yet, I don't think, to see the turnover rate from agencies. I mean, especially in the, Western world and everything. I mean, Hololive, what was it, 2020 when Hololive English Myth first debuted? So of course that became a big thing that really made VTubing bigger in the West and kind of jump-started it, really. So, I mean, that's only been, 4 years, coming up 5, so I don't think that this kind of turnover in a company, especially in a talent agency such as, VTubing, is necessarily crazy or out of the ordinary. Sometimes people just find better opportunities or things that fit them better. Another thing is, I'm curious, will it be a trend, and is it best to try and join an agency to kind of get discovered and truly be able to showcase who you are and your talents and kind of gain that audience, that core audience, and then kind of leave and build your own brand to do your own thing. I mean, the thing that I think about, honestly, is like, for example, sometimes doctors and everything, they work for a hospital, an office, whatever, and then sometimes they leave and make their own practice because they've gained those skills, those knowledge, that knowledge, that information that they would need, and they feel strong enough that they can, support themselves and do it themselves. And sometimes that's another thing. Leaving an agency might not be due to not being a workaholic. It might just simply be that, you do have those goals and you want to, grow yourself in just a different way, to be honest. Like, I mean, there's, I think, quite a bit of room for growth being indie. And I think there's, a whole kind of world out there that maybe you can't quite explore as much in an agency. VTubing is also a lot more accessible now, and I think that's why indie VTubing is kind of starting to become the new thing. You don't need a huge backing to start. There are a lot of VTubers that start off as indie now. There are a lot of VTubers who stay indie, but also with agency VTubers leaving and stuff, there's a lot of them going indie now as well. But you really don't need a huge backing to start anymore, and that's the thing is, there are a lot of free or low-cost options available to start VTubing. Me, for example, even, both my 3D and 2D, totally done myself. I, of course, had to, with my 2D, pay for the art software, art application, and the live 2D as well. But that was honestly really it as far as I can think right now. As well as the 3D and everything, I did this, I think, it was 100% for free. I didn't use any paid programs, even my full body tracking and everything. Again, go check that video out as well. Just a little self-promo there. But yeah, no, there are so many ways now to get into VTubing, even PNG tubing as well. I want to mention that's another low-cost option. There are a lot of low-cost, customizable live 2D VTuber models out there, some even free ones. So there's really a lot available now that maybe wasn't available a few years ago. I mean, it simply wasn't. A lot of the time you needed either the backing of a corporation to start, or you needed an immense amount of technical knowledge and potentially, a lot of money to start as well. So another thing is why I think indie is kind of, becoming more popular even among VTubers who started in agencies or got their popularity in agencies. I shouldn't say started, because a lot of them already had personas or were content creators before, but they really got that huge boost in an agency and working with the agency. But the creative freedom is really, I think, a big factor for a lot of indie VTubers. Even a lot of indie VTubers, although a lot also, dream of being in an agency. I think a lot of indie VTubers also really enjoy being indie and, want to stay indie. With being indie, you don't have to follow the goals or ambitions of the company. There are no permissions needed either for games, songs, special streams, collabs, all that kind of stuff. Often within an agency, you're kind of a bit limited to collabing with the other talents that are within your the agency that you were in. But unless there are occasionally like a couple collabs here and there, but that takes a lot, and I mean a lot, of planning and getting, everything figured out, all of the kind of details and everything worked through. And it takes a lot of people to get that in the works, whereas indie VTubers, they can kind of just reach out to another VTuber and, hey, if both parties are like, yeah, let's do it, they just go through with it. And usually it only, it can take, of course, sometimes it can take a couple of days or a week, but honestly, sometimes it takes less than a day to figure out a collab for indie VTubers. Another thing is as well, what mentioned earlier, was you don't have to follow the ambitions of the company. A lot of VTuber agencies, especially now, are leaning more towards, and have for a little bit, but been leaning towards that idol culture. Kind of following the, K-pop, J-pop sort of, style, where they focus a lot on music. And I think the reason why a lot of VTubers started, of course there are always VTubers who are very into music, but the reason why a lot of VTubers started is streaming is a huge part of being a VTuber. Although I also have the opinion of you don't need to stream to be a VTuber, it is very ingrained in the culture and has been, a part of it for a long time. And I think a lot of people who get into VTubing have a passion for video games and want to stream those or talk about them or, have some sort of, interaction where it's mainly gaming. And I think these agencies started off a lot very focused on gaming, but now they've shifted to being more idol and music and everything. And some VTubers just, aren't as into it as maybe some of the other aspects of VTubing that they were experiencing before in that agency. I think, it kind of, being indie allows you to go in the direction you want to go. whether that's, I don't know, whether it is streaming or doing mainly videos, comedy, being a musician. I think it opens up a whole different kind of opportunity and everything for those VTubers to go in, follow the path that they want to follow. I also think that it often gives you the ability to be more real. You can really say a lot more and aren't restricted by a contract or kind of what the agency, restricts you to saying. You can also play as much or as little of a character as you want. A lot of the times these agencies want to kind of have you play a character, and not everyone plays, into it 100%. There are VTubers, I think even agencies that are very real, but companies are also, these corporations are also looking for, that kind of, I think, suspension of reality, and they want you to play that character because I think viewers kind of expect that now with agencies as well. They expect to have their imagination, really awakened and everything, in that they kind of want to, they gravitate towards that because they can escape from real life a little bit. Whereas indies, I think there are a lot of indies that do that as well, but you can be more real and you can share as much or as little information as you want. Again, it's that freedom, I think, to do that is very enticing often for being indie. Another thing is as well, there's no split of revenue. Of course, there's always going to be split a little bit with like the platforms that you decide to create content on, possibly as well if you have a manager or something like that. But in general, there is not as much of that as you would get in an agency. Ultimately those companies are there to, make money. They sell a lot of merch. They, put out a lot of just things that can make them money. And obviously that's how they support the talents as well. So that is important. But it's also, I understand why it could be, very enticing to not have that split revenue, and just simply be able to, have any of your income profit be yours. I think as well, there is, to a degree, of course, less pressure and it's more relaxed. For the most part, you can do your schedule on your own time. There are no true deadlines or meetings or anything like that unless you set them truly, or if you have a contract with a sponsor or something. But again, that is something that you would set yourself, and that you kind of have more control over. A lot of times, actually all the time, in agencies, sponsors will go through the company. They won't directly contact and just work with the talents, because the agency and everything is ultimately the one who, works out all the details and stuff, and a lot of time gets them these sponsorships as well that they get, or these, collaboration, these merch things as well. So, I mean, it is, I think, less pressure because of that as well. There isn't someone, truly, really above you, telling you, having input on what you should do. So that brings me to the point that I think a lot of people have been kind of doom posting as well, which is interesting. Because let's be honest, these agencies and these corporations are not the end-all be-all of VTubing. And a lot of these VTubers who graduate from the agencies are going indie. So it is a little confusing to me in a way that people are, even discussing that VTubing may be dying out. I totally understand that, like, the dynamics are definitely shifting, and that when you're, when any VTuber graduates from an agency and goes indie, those dynamics will shift. They will be different. They won't be collabing with the same people in that, agency that they were part of before. They'll, I think, 100% like talk about them, in streams and content. They will, still meet up, IRL and everything. I mean, they have a, relationship with these people who were their coworkers before. But I don't think that VTubing is dying at all. But to be honest, like, it may be shifting. I mean, niches shift, and VTubing is very much a niche. It is, it is a subcategory within streaming, kind of, I would say. And yeah, sometimes niches do die out, but I really don't think that VTubing is leaving anytime soon. It's just changing, and change can come from multiple factors. Sometimes you think things have died out as well, but they've actually just evolved to a point where you don't even recognize it anymore unless you truly think about it. Really, one example I can think of is classical music. Seems like really far away from pop music or rap music, but they're both still genres of music, and they evolved from that classical music genre. I mean, back in the olden days, there was no pop or rap music at all. Things just evolve and they grow and change. They're still all music, but those genres that are just more widely popular today evolved from that classical music. So that's, I think, another point that we've got to think about and everything. I mean, technology is changing so fast nowadays, especially that I think things in general are just evolving so fast and changing. With the music example, though, and everything, I mean, one thing you gotta think about as well is sometimes classical music, although it's not as popular nowadays, is even like referenced or sampled in popular music today. So I'm 100% sure that, VTubing changing and evolving, there will still be, core aspects of things we are seeing right now. And, there are still core aspects now of like things we saw in the very beginning of VTubing. So I really think that it is going to change. I'm gonna be honest, but I don't think it'll go anywhere. VTubing is just another way to create content in reality. Even if there appears to be quite a large separation between, creators who are face cam streamers and those who create content using an avatar, there really isn't. We're all kind of doing the same thing. A lot of VTubers even cite their first introductions and inspiration for content creation as YouTubers such as PewDiePie, Jacksepticeye, or Markiplier. And streaming itself as well kind of evolved from those YouTube Let's Play videos that you watched growing up. It's essentially the same thing. It's just a slightly different way of doing it. But as well, sometimes things just fall out of mainstream. And although VTubing I don't think is quite 100% mainstream yet, we have seen a lot of, things that are kind of pushing it towards the mainstream. I mean, the one big thing I can think of is Gargura, and I think it was also Pecora, possibly? Usada Pecora. I think she was at the, what was it? Oh gosh, I'm not a baseball person. I think it was Dodgers. But, yeah, I mean, there's that as well. Like, it is becoming more mainstream, but the thing is, it may never truly be mainstream. But it may fall out of the mainstream of as far as like this niche audience and stuff. It's obviously become a very big thing within the anime community and, video gaming and all that kind of stuff. But it may lose popularity a little bit, but and like fall out of the spotlight. But in reality, a lot of things that fall out of popularity still have a very large core audience. I think, for example, like FNAF, Five Nights at Freddy's, that is a game that I don't think is talked about quite as much as it was when it first came out. I mean, everybody was playing it, it was this huge thing. But there's still, to this day, a very large core audience that, really enjoys it. And sometimes things just find their true core audience once hype settles down a bit. And honestly, I think that's okay. TV shows, that generally have huge hype when they're first released or currently, in the process of airing, aren't talked about much after they're finished, except for the core audience. But those people are the ones who matter the most, anyways, in the end. Because, like, for a niche like VTubers, for example, if someone is truly interested in it, and interested in VTubing as a whole, they probably won't watch just one VTuber. I think there will be enough to go around. I think generally when something is, a niche is mainstream, I think it is, people will only enjoy one aspect of it, or like in this example, one VTuber. They won't, or one agency even, they won't, as a whole, kind of be super into it, but overall, I think the accessibility of VTubing is a main factor at the moment. There are so many like cheap and free resources out there. You don't need the backing of an agency like you used to. It is at this moment so much easier to start than it was, a couple years ago. And VTubers who were originally in an agency might also leave a corporation due to not agreeing with the changes or the new policies. And by now, I think it's been pretty proven that an agency VTuber going indie will do just fine. I mean, they're definitely, I don't think, fighting for, their content to be seen out there. I think, viewers are definitely more connected to the talent than the agency itself. even if the viewer does appreciate the kind of dynamics and interactions or like the things they do within that agency, ultimately it is the streamer, the VTuber, the content creator that they see on screen, that they have that attachment to and everything. And although it is sad to see, to not be able to see those those dynamics and all the fun clips and everything, or funny moments from a VTuber who was once in an agency interacting with their gen mates, their senpais or kohais, I think that ultimately that that streamer, that VTuber, the talent is really what brings in the viewer and everything. And I think people really enjoy the personality that they see, and that's what they really truly love. They don't often have a true attachment to the corporation. But there's generally, again, less pressure in several ways. The more freedom, you can have control over your schedule. Your content can be exactly as you want it to be. And the ability to be more real on your public platform as well. I think all those are big factors in, why someone may go indie after being in an agency. It can get tiring kind of feeling like you have to fit into this, certain kind of thing that they want you to be. And of course, you do have in general, people just in daily life having that kind of, work mode versus home mode versus, family mode. People do act differently in different situations. But I think when you're talking specifically all the time and you're streaming all the time and you're having these conversations and you feel like you're not able to say certain things or talk about aspects of your life when all you're doing all day is talking, I think that can get very rough, kind of mentally and everything, for that streamer. So, in my opinion, VTuber agency graduations truly has nothing to do with VTubers as a whole dying out. Dying out. Because the space is simply evolving. And when you take a second to take a step back from the agencies, especially the large ones, and look at the VTuber community as a whole, it's thriving right now. It's so big. Don't get me wrong, it is now hella competitive. And even though that kind of sucks for us VTubers who are just making our way into this world, competition also cultivates and drives more innovation and new ideas. So, in conclusion, in my opinion, I think the future of VTubing is indie. Thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it so much. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I love responding to comments and I love hearing your opinions. So please do that if you've got any thoughts. And thank you again so much for watching. So I will see you next time. Goodbye.